Hey, I wanted to put this video out. I'm sorry it's not that good. As far as the view, I'm getting a glare over here. I wanted to bring this information to you because I am definitely in celebration mode today. I've been hunting this piece of shit for 5 years now. And as of today and yesterday, I've been bringing information to you about Vin Diesel. So I'm going to go through and tell you what I'm thinking, and in time we'll find out if all of this is absolutely accurate, because some of it I don't know, and I'll tell you what I don't know. Well, there was a little boy that disappeared back in Iowa in 1973, I think it was, and it was a Boy Scout trip near Toddville, Iowa. That little boy was supposed to be called Guy Heckle or Guy Howard Heckle. I posted pictures of that kid because he was the Mongol bloodline mixed with the, that I could see in the photograph, he was Mongol and George Washington bloodline, which of course piqued my interest because of the George Washington bloodline mostly. Toddville, I looked in that area for crimes because Bernie Bowers lived in Toddville, and Bernie Bowers is the person that raised Steve Jobs, who goes by Steve Breyer in our fake Supreme Court. That one is a media owner, and he is the House of Saudi Arabia. Off camera, Steve Jobs goes as Dave Bowers in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Dave moved in with the person that I was trafficked into their home as a baby. So that wasn't my biological mother that was in the home that I was trafficked to, but my biological father was there. So I did not have my biological mother from day one. And the person that you knew as Jackie Kennedy and Nancy Pelosi was the person that was raising me in that home. So off camera, my dad had married Jackie Kennedy, who also plays Nancy Pelosi, and that's the home that I grew up in. Very common denominator in Hollywood. There's a whole bunch of child trafficking. So Dave Bowers, Steve Jobs, lived with Nancy Pelosi, or Chris Lockhart, off camera, Jackie Kennedy. He lived with her from 1979 on, and she had divorced my dad in 1973 or 74. So I had gone to Toddville a couple times, out to Bernie Bowers' house in the woods, and he was married to a munchkin named Pat Bowers. I've been going over lately. Pat Bowers also played a person named Artland Perkins, who was married to George Perkins, aka Vernon Presley, and Pat Bowers also went by Alvesta Perkins, who trolled my dad back in 1977. Now, the little kid disappeared from there, so that was a big interest of mine, and kept coming back. Every time I would search other things, I'd come back to this little kid, and I wasn't sure, but I'm just putting this part out here. I don't know, but this may be the same person we know today as Vin Diesel. So Vin Diesel is approximately 2 years older than me, and when I met this kid, it would have been Chuck YANDA back in Iowa back in 1980. So, 7 years later, I would have met this kid, and he was 2 years older than me. That one was good friends with my sister back in Iowa in Cedar Rapids, and I only remember meeting him once, but he looked at me like he was very curious about me. I was just a little 12-year-old kid. He was a couple years older than me, maybe 13. And so didn't think too much about that at all at the time. But again, when I saw Chuck Yanda's picture in my photo album, I kept going back to him because he is the George Washington bloodline. And I'd met him with my sister. My sister is an actor. She has been an actor since she played Kate Jacqueline Smith on Cheers. Jacqueline Smith on Charlie's Angels. This is the third time I've tried to put this video together. It's just, I'm almost tired, like trying to do this tonight, but I have to get this to you. So my sister's been an actor since she was at least 13 years old, and that's why he glommed onto her right when she got to town. Her other best friend was Jennifer Aniston, and the person you know as Demi Moore was very possibly Chuck Yanda's sister that he was raised with. To put all of that into perspective is kind of mind-blowing, but these actors stick together from day one. And the dirtier they were getting, the better gigs they were getting. So that's part of our problem, is that they were dirty deeds actors, and they were doing dirty, dirty deeds. Knowing his bloodline, which is Chuck Yanda's bloodline, he's the Mongol bloodline mixed with the Henchman or the Pompeo bloodline. That's one and the same, pretty much. The Henchman, if you think of the old days where they had the movies where there's this guy with the black mask over his face and he's standing next to the guillotine, that's the same bloodline I'm talking about. And Chuck's part of that bloodline. He's part of the Mongol bloodline. They kind of look like they have Down syndrome. And he is the House of Saud bloodline, House of Saudi Arabia, mixed with the George Washington bloodline. Now, take those four bloodlines. They've been, all of them, there's good people in those bloodlines, and then there's been some dirty, some of the dirtiest pool players on the planet are those four bloodlines. So he wasn't going to have it easy. I'm sure he got tortured, molested, you name it, they did it to this kid. When I called, so a couple things I wanted to mention about that with Vin Diesel, because this Chuck Yanda is Vin Diesel. Back in the early 90s, I told my sister I wanted to have another child, and my sister went home and supposedly had a child like 10 months later, and she wasn't going to ever have another child, so that was surprising to me. The kid was named Vin. Before Vin Diesel was even very popular, Vincent shows up. And I thought it was interesting she named that kid Vincent, and that child did not have the genetics of her and her husband. He was actually not her bloodline. So that needs to be definitely investigated. And the name Vin was interesting, or Vincent. Also, the 1999 era, Sandy mentions to me 1995 to 99. I think it was 1997 to 99, somewhere in there. She says to me she wants to get with Vin Diesel. Now, I don't know anything about actors at that time. I didn't know we were surrounded by actors. I didn't know that LA, Hollywood was anywhere other than LA. I thought that's where all the Hollywood actors were. They actually are sprinkled all over the United States. The big, two of the big studios are right there in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where we were. Well, they have another one in Kansas City. They got one in Chicago, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, New York, of course. But right here in Clearwater, that's why Scientology is so big. They always have their cult near it. And in Iowa, they have the Maharishi. That's where they have the Maharishi there, is because of the studio. It's a studio town. That's where they brainwash these kids, teach them to lie till they die, program them, torture them, molest them, do satanic worship, sacrificing humans. These are some batshit crazy people that we're dealing with, that we are busting today, and have been busting for a while. Now, when she said that, it struck me as odd. Like I said, I had no idea she was an actor. I didn't know anything about that kind of world. And that's why it stuck in my mind. When I was in Iowa around 2004, I remember calling Dave Norville, who is the Dos Equis guy. He was the most interesting man in the world, supposedly. And he was my billing agent for about 7 years. I called him and said I wanted to move to Florida. At that time, I checked out the laws and rules, and it was going to cost me $25,000 and about 5 years of running around the country trying to take tests. So I decided to opt out of Florida. I guess I wasn't going to go to Florida, and I took my kids on vacations instead of spending that money on these tests. I'm glad I did, because right when I got ready to move down here to Florida, they changed everything, and I had to take one $50 laws and rules exam. That's how quick the laws can change. When they're setting up Vin Diesel. That's what it's all about. And that's what I'm getting to right here. David Norval is the son of Tricky Dick and Richard Nixon. Nelson Rockefeller and FDR are played by the same cat. That's Frank Redding from Algona, Iowa. David Norval is also a lifelong actor. Dos Equis gig was just one of his gigs. He's also played Neil Donald Walsh, the horror guy like Toby Hunter. He died a couple years ago. Can't remember that dude's name. It was familiar though. He's played many gigs. Those are just some of them. He plays a Rockefeller. He plays David Rockefeller Jr. Because his dad played Nelson Rockefeller, so that's why. I called him and said I wanted to move down here, and that's when they, and I don't know how many they are numbered, but I would have to say they, meaning Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. They were both playing in World War II together. They both played in politics together, and they were also the older generation of lost soul actors. And Ronald Reagan played Prince Philip, Kermit Roosevelt, Adolf Hitler, Adolf Eichmann, Salvador Dali, where he painted that the House Assad was beating him. If you go back and look at the picture of George Washington holding the scales, and he's got a blindfold on, and he has a ball and chain on his leg, that's Salvador Dali, who also played Prince Philip and all those other gigs. So he was painting about how they were torturing him in that picture. And he was also naming the perps in that picture too, in that painting. So I use it a lot. It's very good, actually very good for intel. Now, they were setting him up because they made sure that a gal named Susie, who is the George Washington bloodline, they made sure that she moved to this particular place on First Street in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida at that time. I called David. That's exactly when Susie said that she got that dream deal on the beach for this condo was like an amazing price. And so she and her daughter moved to the beach at that time. And that was about 5 years before I moved here. 5 to 6 years before I moved here. And they were setting up the trap for Chuck YANDA or Vin Diesel. Same guy, different gigs. I'm going to be talking about the same guy. He's played a lot of gigs. Then when 2010 hit, all the laws had changed. I moved down to Florida. I moved to the beach. And Susie is next door at this time. She's the bloodline of George Washington. And in the front unit of my place, I lived at 511 First Street in Indian Rocks Beach. It was a kick-ass condo, too. It's really cool. In the front of the building was Chuck Molnar. Chuck Molnar also plays Robert De Niro, Lee Harvey Oswald. He has played L. Ron Hubbard, Stuart Wilde, Ringo Starr, Fidel Castro, an older LBJ. I don't know if he played the younger one, but he definitely played the older one right before he supposedly kicked it. He's played other characters too. Those are Eros Saarinen. He was a very, very, very Dirty Deeds actor. Bernie Madoff, he's played that one too. That's all Robert De Niro. He was going by Chuck Molnar and lived in the front half of my unit. The unit that it was one condo, it was a duplex, and it was 3 levels. And so he lived in the A, I lived in B. Susie lived next door. And Chuck had a crush on her. Well, of course he did, because that's his bloodline. And that's weird. Sorry, but that's weird. And he knew this, but I don't know if she knew it. And she's always out for the money, so she didn't find Chuck that attractive. And she wasn't into him at all. But he was digging on her. At the same time, she was on and off seeing a guy named Rick Ketzler, Katzler, or something like that. Anyway, Rick was also Ric Flair on camera. And it turns out he's also Chuck YANDA from Iowa. But I haven't seen that kid for 35 years or so. So anyway, 30 years at that point. So Rick possibly did know or didn't know who I was, but he was also friends with a guy named Leo Smith, and Leo Smith was Hunter Thompson from the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Whole bunch of weird drama around Leo. He's just a big piece of shit. I think he was the CIA, so was his son John Niebert. These guys are just, they're like little flies. You just, you know, little pieces of shit. That's all I gotta say. They're the worst of the worst of the worst. Well, Rick is all, you know, best buddies with Leo Smith, so you know that they're into some bad stuff. So Ric Flair, he's all about the attacking the children online, pedophilia. He's attacking the children online with his little gang. Some of them being Al Jackal, aka Steve Wynn. That's another one of them. These poor little rich boys, I guess, is what I call them. They were very, very dirty. Some of them living in Treasure Island. And, you know, they were coming into my office. I've been reporting them. I've already reported them. One of them said that they're going to hold a gun against my head for telling the truth. So Vin Diesel was sending all these people into my office for 5 years now. Just send them over and over and over. And I would just crush another one, expose them. And Vin Diesel was running out of people. He doesn't have enough people. They just keep getting crushed everywhere they go. They go into my office, they're just like, there's another one. So Rick being Vin Diesel and Ric Flair, Rick Ketzler off camera, Chuck YANDA in Iowa, was not a mistake that Chuck Molnar, aka Robert De Niro, was living in the front unit of that building, and I was living in the back unit, and Susie's next door, because Chuck YANDA was groomed and possibly even raised by Chuck Molnar. It's one of his parasitic families. Chuck Molnar has gone by Paul Keeksey in Iowa. He went by Leo Wild in Rockford, Illinois, where he had a school, and he had a family with Elizabeth Taylor. Paul Keeksey in Iowa, he had Modern Woodman of America. That's one of his gigs. He was playing Ed Quillen down here in Florida also, trolling me as Ed Quillen, who has other 2 or 3 families down here as Ed Quillen. That's just Robert De Niro. They all do this. They have different families. They might be running 2 or 3 families at the same time. They parasitically breed. They traffic kids. They're into child pornography. They're pedophiles. They're drug. They deal in drugs, human sacrifice. I mean, they're all doing the same thing. Every one of them. So Rick was the worst of the worst of the worst. He was the big bully for them because of his bloodline and because of how they groomed him. Chuck Molnar grooming him. Now, Chuck YANDA or Rick came into my office, trolled my office too. I couldn't understand what Plastic Boy was doing in my office. He just was plastic. Fake as shit, not a very good actor. Didn't really understand him except that he was plastic. And Leo at one point told me that he had a stroke, that Rick Ketzler or Ric Flair had a stroke, and that he didn't remember anything, and he couldn't remember a gal he had dated. And Leo had to point it out to him that he had dated this one particular server that waited on him one day. He says, you know, you dated her. And Rick's like, no, I didn't. And so, I don't know what the hell that was all about, but that's what Leo said. So, in 2015, I'm having guns held to my child and I. They're trying to kill us. They tried to kill me with 22-year-old tires in 2011. 2008, they tried to kill my kids and I in a car accident in Iowa. And all of this having to do with Steve Jobs or Dave Bowers, which was, again, if you go back to Bernie Bowers, that's the same bloodline as Rick Ketzler. That is his father or his grandfather, biologically speaking. He may have been raised by De Niro or groomed by De Niro, but he has the biology of the person that raised Steve Jobs. All these people kept trying to kill my children and I, and we are just walking through this whole thing, and I'm looking around going, people don't have this kind of shit happen to them. Why is all of this going on? I don't understand. They were trying to kill me before I had this conversation with you today. And yesterday, and in the last 5 years, all of that was not supposed to happen. They were going to try to kill me before I became their problem, their big problem. They failed. It just actually exploded their world by them trying to kill me. Now, there was a website in 2015 after I had already had a gunman try to kill us at a hotel. I came back here to Florida in PTSD and began to research truth. I was led to Ed Chirini's website. Ed Chiarini is just another straw name for Ric Flair, Vin Diesel, same cat. And he had half truth and half lies. When I called him out on it, he started to verbally attack me, and then I immediately got domestically terrorized for 3 weeks. From December 15th to January 7th or so, I was getting my house broken into. They were crashing my computer, like literally throwing my computer on the floor, and stealing my memory sticks, my pictures off my memory sticks, so they're all blank. I lost thousands of pictures of my kids, all those years. I never printed them up for a long time. I just kept them on the memory stick, and they took all my pictures. I knew at the time that had something to do with Ben Affleck because he was on those pictures, because he's cohorts with Ric Flair, of course. They're both henchmen, built like the henchmen. They're bred to look like the henchmen. They got these wide shoulders and everything, and that's about 6'2" to 6'4". They're bred that way on purpose because they're bred to be the henchmen. So I began to wake up, and that's when they attacked me. They continued to attack me over the last 5 years. I've had dead cats in my door, at my front door, dead possums, continued to break into my home. They've trolled me. They've set off EMP attacks, which is like, if you think of like 20 to 50 M80s going off in your ear, that's what that sounds like. I've had that happen twice. Of course, my house has been hit by lightning a couple times since that time. I mean, I could go on, but you guys, if you've been around for a while, know the attacks because I bring them to you when it happens, because we need a record of it. Now, going to Ed Chiarini again, that is the same cat. He set up that website to try to catch people that could see through the masks and actually stood up for America and stood up for the people. And that's what I do. So he was going to come and attack me and put me down. And he was going to do that to anybody. So if you, I kind of stepped my toe into all of this even more so, not knowing when I wrote my book, Charlie's Wave. Didn't know the truth about a lot of things at that time, but I was writing it to inspire people to kick some ass. The big joke about that is I inspired a whole bunch of people to kick my ass with that book. And I was talking about secrets, not C's secrets. I was talking about the not dead Steve Jobs and John Lennon, because he's played both, and they were going to come out of the woodwork. They were just slithering out of the woodwork, trying to attack me and to put me, get me to react to them. If they could get me to be violent, then they could imprison me. They could put me in prison, shit like that. I'm not a violent person, so all that failed. And eventually, Ed Chiarini just kept kind of fading away. They got what they wanted. They wanted the Trump gig because Trump is in on it with them. Trump was raised by Steve Jobs, groomed by Steve Jobs. And that was one of his groomers. And his fake mother, actually, too, off camera, was Steve Jobs, dressed up as a chick. So Trump being Sean Penn, Robin Williams, Bono from U2, David Cassidy, where they took nude pictures of him, pedophilia and all of that. He was groomed and raised with Rick Ketzler or Ric Flair or whatever. And he played Elton John, Joe Walsh. Those are some of his gigs. So they were dirty deeds players. The way that they got into the White House was they were the new lost souls. And the dirtier the lost souls, those are the ones that got into the White House. And they were going to beat out all the older Nazis and take over the game, so to speak. They were like, we're going to take over the game. It's not a game. Human lives aren't a game. The planet isn't a game. But that's what these people have been lost in their whole life. And Rick was their big bully. That's why they put him into wrestling when he was young and pumped him up full of possibly adrenochrome, which is very possibly a drug taken out of the dying, terrified people that they sacrificed. And you can see video of Ric Flair high on something, and I'm pretty sure it's the adrenochrome is what he was high on at that time. If that is indeed a true thing, so I don't know if this stuff actually exists. It's just been floating around the net. Whatever drug he was on, it was not good. It was bad, and you can tell it in his eyes. And this guy was all whacked out when he was playing Ric Flair. They get him pumped up there, and they do the same thing to these wannabe actors, and that's how they train them at that, and, you know, being bullies and all of that. So when he shows up as Vin Diesel, and my sister's saying stuff like she wants to get with Vin Diesel, she's naming her son Vincent. This is not a common family name, not even remotely. Where the hell did the name Vincent come from? I just couldn't figure it out. And that definitely places her with Chuck Yonda too. So, because she was raised with Chuck Yonda from like 15 years old, 14 years old on. When I was looking at Vin Diesel in the last couple days, I kept coming up with Vinton, Iowa, which is near where this little boy died or disappeared years ago. Supposedly died, but actually disappeared. The actors were coming from Vinton. I would meet actors in Cedar Rapids. Didn't know they were actors, but later I found out that they were actors, and they were coming from Vinton, Iowa. And then I started thinking of the name Vin. I'm like, that is where they were taking them, and they were most likely torturing them, molesting them, everything, all right there in Vinton. And so when they named him Vin, or he named himself Vin, it stands for Vinton, Iowa. And Diesel actually, if I'm not mistaken, stands for dies ill. So Vin dies ill. He died, his soul died in Vinton, and he was ill. He's very ill. And that's where the name comes from. So they're trained actors, just like as funny as Robin Williams is, he's very ill. He's a very ill man. He's a very ill soul. As Trump, he's a very ill soul. He is reading a script by people that give him a script. And he really, really believes in all the horrible stuff that they've done to people, and all the people that they've hurt and played parts in killing. they absolutely feel that they are right. They are ill. Just like Diesel. Diesel is ill. And just in the last few days, probably the last week, I kept going back to Vin Diesel, and I didn't know that he played Ed Chiarini. I started to find out when I found Juan Santiago, and I know Juan Santiago, he plays rock on the boob tube, and Juan Santiago was a dirty cop in North Liberty, Iowa City area. He trolled me back in 2004. And he was such a big piece of shit. I told him to kiss off, you know, get out of my life, you loser. And he was a cop and a parole officer. So when I found Juan Santiago, it also brought back the domestic terrorism from 2015, because Juan Santiago was ID'd by me at GameStop, trolling me during the PSYOPs and domestic terrorism of 2015. Here's the thing about Vin Diesel. Not only did he name him something, you know, himself something that I could go back and find because of Vinton, Iowa, and all the people I knew from Vinton coming in to Cedar Rapids. He also had video on his well-aware website that was not possible for us to have. We, the populace. He wasn't a civilian. He was a paid actor. He's been doing it his whole life. And he had way too much information about Columbine. And he posts pictures of them moving a dummy. Well, he was taking those videos. Finally started to put it together for me that this cat, Ed Chiarini, was the one that was hiring these dirty deeds actors to do, these fake shootings in the schools to get more control over the people. The real reason that they wanted to do the shootings for the schools and all that is to blame it on the kids. Like the kids are doing something wrong and they're not. These are just poor kids being accused of bullshit they're not guilty of. It's to divide the older against the younger. It was to get more control, more not gun control, more measures to control the people. Like if you go to the airport now compared to 1980, it's a totally different game now. There is no fun at the airport. It's like a Nazi war camp. That's what he was trying to get over the people, and that's why all these gun shootings, all these shootings have supposedly happened at the schools, because he was right there hiring the actors, making these dirty deeds happen. They were filming all this stuff and then they'd post it to the people. And he was the main cat for doing that. That's why he had all that footage as Ed Chiarini. So being the boogeyman, they wanted the next boogeyman. He was the next boogeyman. And that's why he was hiring the actors to do all these gigs. Many of the actors have been ID'd and brought down because of it. So when I saw the videos in the last few years, I'm like, this guy had way too much information. That's how he got it. He's knocked off a lot of his stuff off the internet from 5 years ago. I know some people have saved it, thank goodness. That website was set up to catch people that could see through the masks, that told the truth, that did the right thing. I, of course, was one of those people. And that's when he attacked me again. He failed. And he continued to attack me over the last 5 years. And everything has failed. So, everything. I mean, you name it, they have tried it. It's been bullshit. No one should have to put up with what I put up with. And that's why I brought it public. I felt like the public should know. And we needed a record of it. So, Vin Diesel got his fake fame. So the Fast and Furious and all that fake fame that he got, the fake makeup and all of that, that's how he got that gig as Vin Diesel. And going back to 1980 for Chuck YANDA, his energy was of white trash. He was a white trash punk. That was his MO. That was his aura. And I didn't understand why my sister was hanging out with this white trash. And Sherry Yanda, his sister, I'm pretty sure plays Demi Moore today. And that one was white trash too. And I'm not even being mean. I'm telling you this because I'm being completely honest. I'm looking at him as a little kid, and I'm like, those two people are white trash. Why the heck are you hanging out with them? Her other friend was Maxine Schulte, who turned out to be Jennifer Aniston, another white trash piece of shit. And Jennifer Aniston's fake brother, Doug Schulte, that was living in that same household as Maxine Schulte, that one turned out to be Doug Schulte originally, but later Elizabeth Shue, and then Gina Lee Nolan, and also Jessica Simpson. Off camera goes as a chick all the time now, so I think that one's been castrated. And he goes by Delin Lacayo in Iowa, and he goes by Hope Wyant here in Florida. Has my old office at 1401 Gulf Boulevard, Unit 2 in Indian Rocks Beach under Zen Massage. He named it Zen Massage because he named it Zach, which is one of his trafficked kids, and Elizabeth for Elizabeth Shue, that gig he played. And then N is in Nick, or Nick Lachey, because of the Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson bullshit. Nick was his youngest kid that he had trafficked from Lachey. So he took Nick Lachey's kid and raised that kid in his home. Nick Lachey off camera goes by Shane. So he is a major child trafficker, and his big cohort in all those crimes was a kid that he was abused with and raised with, and that's again Ric Flair. Or Ed Chiarini, or Vin Diesel, same cat, different gigs. And when you see Vin Diesel, he is a major pedophile. And that's what we're bringing to surface right now. And it all started with his grandfather, Bernie Bowers, as far as I'm concerned. Right outside of Toddville, right where he disappeared when he was only between 8 to 11 years old. So all this information I'm bringing to you kind of in one area so you can understand that this is a huge deal for me, because I've been hunting him for 5 years. When you troll me and you try to kill me and you try to kill my children and you try to put our lives in a horrible place all the time, and you've been paid bank to be the boogeyman. You see the Mongol bloodline, just like his cousins or brothers, half brothers or cousins. One of them being Joel Odekirk, who goes by Mike Pompeo today, and he's gone by Adam Sandler and other gigs. He used to play a Beastie Boy, Matt Lauer. That's the same cat. He's the Mongol bloodline, and he was trained to be a terrorist. They do bug warfare. They set off fires. They blow up bridges. They drug people. They blackmail people. These are major terrorists. These are the same people that did 9/11. The other big cohort of his was, or is, Todd Turner. And Todd Turner is a half-brother of his, if I'm not mistaken. Todd Turner's shorter than him, though, and is playing a chick named Shelley Heatrick on the beach, and is living with Donald Trump as Trump plays Robert Clark on Indian Rocks Beach. This is a big studio town, so that's why Trump is here. This is where they're filming a lot of the White House bullshit. Now, Todd Turner, being the half-brother or cousin of Ric Flair, or Vin Diesel, he's played Alanis Morissette, Shelley Heatrick off camera, Shakira, Sheryl Crow, Bruce Springsteen, and one of them plays Rob Zombie. I thought it was Ed Chiarini, but it may be Todd Turner, the other one, because they do share a lot of genetics with each other due to they're both Mongol and they're both George Washington bloodline, But Rick has something else thrown in there, and that is the henchman bloodline. They both have the House Assad bloodline. So there's the switch there, the change up right there is the henchman bloodline makes Rick about 6'2" and makes Todd Turner about 5'4". They both hate my guts. Hate me, hate me, hate me. Want me dead. Now, all those people were in bed together. Trump is in bed with them. Today he went on PIR report. That's why I posted it. Oh gosh, I got 40 minutes on this one. This is a long one. Stephen Mnuchin, he mentions, that is the son of Mario Cuomo. Mario Cuomo is one of their groomers. Mario Cuomo also played, Steve Grassley right now in Iowa, and he's also played Gene Simmons and Steven Tyler and the Ayatollah Khomeini and Sean Connery. He's a media owner. Very, very bad human sacrificer. Pedophile. This guy's really bad. He also mentions Putin in his PIR report. That's just Trump. So PIR is done on YouTube, is done by Trump. And he mentions Vladimir Putin in this, and that him and Vladimir Putin are friends. Well, they are friends because Vladimir Putin was also kidnapped at the same time that Rick or Vin Diesel was kidnapped, same year. And Vladimir at that time was in my home as Michael James Perkins was kidnapped by Mario Cuomo at that time, and then molested and terrorized and introduced into their satanic world. He was tortured and kidnapped from my family when they threw my dad in prison, possibly. That's what I was told, that my dad was put in prison at that time. When my dad played everything from Little Spanky all the way up to Elvis Presley, Larry Hagman, Antonin Scalia, John Belushi, you name it, he's played it. They threw him in prison after drilling holes in his legs in the early 60s as Elvis. If you go back and look at the internet pictures, the Google pictures of Elvis in the military in his underwear, that's where you can see the holes in his legs. And he also has them as Larry Hagman. So my dad could be good, bad, or ugly, but that's what was going on in my home in the 70s. They were doing the same thing to Rick Katzler or Ed Chiarini or Vin Diesel. They were doing the same thing to him too. Some of us can't be bought. Some of us can't be bought. Bent, broken, beaten. You can't buy some of us. And Ketzler was one of them you could buy. So was Trump. So was Vladimir. All of these people were people that they could buy. Vladimir Putin was raised here in the United States. He may be Russian, but he sure wasn't raised there. He mentions Reagan in his PIR report, and he also mentions Joe Biden. He's talking Reagan up. Well, he's talking Joe Biden down. Joe Biden's such a bad guy and all this. Well, Joe Biden is the spitting image of his dad because Reagan is his dad. That's the same perps. They play one against the other, like one's the enemy and one of them's the good cop one. They're the same people. They're the same people, and he's talking Reagan up. It's just bullshit. This guy's a liar. You're gonna be so upset when you find out what a lost soul that Trump is, and from his Sean Penn gig all the way to his, Robin Williams gig and all that. He is a lost soul, and he really thinks he's right. And he knows now he sold his soul to the devil a long, long time ago. He sold it to the Satanist. He just gave it to him willingly. Boom. He's the Joseph Mengele bloodline. He's the son of Joseph Mengele. They do the same thing every generation. He is the brother of Nancy Pelosi, as he talks about her today. He's the brother of Nancy Pelosi. He's a cohort with that one. He's a brother of Hillary Clinton. Those Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton are two boys. They're brothers of his. They're cohorts together. The genetics don't lie. Nancy Pelosi was even playing tapes of Trump when he was playing his Bono gig back in the 80s and 90s. Okay. I think that is enough. I hope you have a good night. I hope that helps. And yeah, you may have to go over that a couple times, but if you've been listening to the information as it comes out, you'll know that we've been working on this for a long, long time, and this was a huge celebration day. God bless you. I love you.